I think what Mike has done is incredible, and to have Bob here for that was pretty awesome when you think about it. A lot of pressure on what he's done. It's I didn't want to be the guy, but in a way, if I have to lose to somebody, what a class act to lose to. I was in a no-win situation. I was either going to be the pitcher that threw to Henry Aaron for the record breaker, or I was going to be the guy who shot Bambi. I was dead both ways, so I didn't feel like I was in a very winnable situation in that whole thing.
Comments from Tom Izzo, head coach of Michigan State, who they might as well have joined the ACC with the Carolina loss and playing Duke last night. How about that start to the year? IOP's got Alice Lloyd. We were laughing with Sonny VMI played Alice Lloyd College. I had no idea where Alice Lloyd is.
Alice Lloyd College?
Yeah, in Kentucky. Pippa Penn's Kentucky. It's an NAIA school. They're the Eagles. We just looked it up today. Because I didn't know. Ed Huckaby is here. He is the head coach of the post-grad basketball program at Fishburne Military School. Does an outstanding job. What year is this for you now? How long
Year
have you been
three. Year three.
Yeah.
So we've been.
It's gone fast, huh?
It has. We've been very fortunate. We've had all the guys that had completed the program have moved on to four-year schools. A couple of JUCO guys, but the majority have gone on to Division I schools.
And when you walk into a living room, talk to these kids. I mean, that's the story you're preaching, right? You're telling them, look, we'll get you in. Your grades need it. We'll get you in here. Because when I talked to Tevin on your media day, went over there, and the other kid, I forgot who the other kid was, the tall kid,
Matt Gorski.
Yeah, Matt. And these guys said we had no thought at all that we were going to be in a military school. None at all. I think the selling point is what, especially for Fishburne and schools similar to it, it really gives you some structure and discipline that carries you well beyond athletics. Right.
Because you and I both know the biggest washout rate in college is your freshman year, your first year. 50% of the freshmen that come in don't make it to the second year.
Yeah, I had friends dropping out like crazy.
Yeah.
They had no clue.
None at all. So, even with that being said, we sold them on the fact that, hey, this thing can help you long term. But I think our program, the first year for me was a little tougher. We had no history to go on. The second year, you had a little bit of history. This year, it's obvious that you've had the previous 2 years to build on, and we've had quite a few guys.
You can see that on the recruiting trail then. Yeah, exactly. You can tell. So when you go into a living room, you sit down with the parents, and they're like, they want to know, like, why? Why would we come to Waynesboro? Why does my son need to be up at 6 a.m. with roll call and be that structured?
I think a lot of the parents have bought into that. They would like that. And then guys, if they have to play post-grad basketball to look to move on to the Division I level, that's what they shoot for. I think we're a pretty good option. I think what helps is my resume and credibility. I do bring a sense of credibility to the room when I talk to them, because they're playing for a guy that coached at the Division I level and has a lot of contacts through ESPN and scouting services. So they kind of look at it, and coaches around the country know if I make a phone call, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I'll tell you, either the guy stinks or he can play.
Right.
And whether he's good enough to play for you. It's like, for the listeners out there, Tevin Jones I knew was more than good enough to play in the ACC. Tevin Jones could play anywhere in the country. No
did
question.
you call, so when you did, this brings up an interesting, so Ed Huckaby is with us from Fishburne Military School. He coaches they're 8-0, by the way, and just underway. But that brings up an interesting subject. So let's take Tevin, for example. He's coming to UVA. Do you look at all 12 schools in the ACC, or you go, no, because personnel, you go, no, he's a fit there, and there?
Well, I think I tell the players, and to answer your question, to look for where they fit. And that being said, I try not to tell them where to go, but if they ask me some information on a particular program, I will tell them, hey, this is where you could possibly fit, but don't run away from competition. He had other ACC schools that immediately when he committed to UVA, it was funny. The guys called me up, and Huck, I thought we were going to get a chance to recruiting. We had everything scheduled, and but again, he made a choice. I thought that he was a great fit for Tony.
Sure.
because we run a lot of similar things that UVA does in terms of concepts, especially defensively. And so it was a good fit personality-wise, location, and it wasn't like Tevin had to make this knee-jerk reaction and say, yeah, I want to go to UVA. This is the only option. I mean, he could have actually waited to the late signing period and would have had more choices.
Sure.
But I think it's a good fit.
The kids still have the mentality that they want to play right away, right? I mean, I want to walk out of Fishburne, and I'm going to walk on the floor of Virginia. I do want to play right away.
No question.
Yeah.
I mean, the guys that we have that have played prior to our program, I get a kick out of turning the TV on. If our previous players aren't starting, they're in the rotation. And we've got quite a few guys that have come through Fishburne the last 2 years that are starting. Casey Whitaker starts at UAB.
Yeah.
UAB has 3 starters that are former players of mine. And the last time I think I saw that, Memphis Fairleigh High School, 3 of their starters were starters for Arkansas in the national championship team. And the reason I know that, I was a high school coach and had to coach against those guys.
Okay.
And we actually happened to beat them. We had a really good team that year. But it's rare. I'm just using UAB as an example, but we've got, it's creatures of habit. People recruit programs. Dad Mata does that at Ohio State. They want the best players, but normally if you look across the country, the best players are pretty much at the same programs every year in high school.
Would Duke take a prep school guy?
Oh, no question. If he fit.
If he fit, right.
If he fit. They don't do the JUCO thing.
Right.
But a prep school guy would, if he fits, yeah, they would do it.
Right.
No question.
And so up and down, really, the ACC, you would have no problem calling any program.
Oh, none at all.
Yeah.
If I thought a guy could play, example being, and I'll leave those guys' names. I've got 2 other guys I know can play in the ACC, and they chose not to do the ACC because I always tell the players, and for you young guys out there listening, if you're not in school today,
they're on the way. Classes don't start yet.
Don't pick the school. You want to pick the coach you want to play for. And I know university administrators think it's all about the school. It's not. You're picking the coach you want to play for because you don't see the provost or the vice president or the president or the chancellor of the university doing a recruiting visit or a home visit. It's the basketball staff. And that's what it comes down to. Who is the coach you want to play for?
They are going to be on top of you for 3 or 4 years.
No question.
1 year or 2 years.
No question.
Now, but that's that's good. So anyway, the Tevin story is a good one because how many times did Tony see him?
Tony saw him, I think, twice in person. If not, 3 times in person, I think. I know the staff saw him more in July. The entire staff came over and saw him play. I think more importantly, Tony got a glance even into practice because practice tells you a lot about how good a player is. And see, Tevin's practicing with 11 other Division I players every day. So in a regular high school, how many times can you say that a guy is practicing with 11 other guys that are going to play college basketball? And that's where you get better is actually in practice in the competition. And Tevin probably went unseen in high school. He was the guy in high school, but he was an all-state football player. And he was so athletic. Reminds me of like a Charlie Ward type, exactly how he reminds me. Same temperament, same tenacity, quiet in terms of not being boastful, but he is a heck of a floor leader. I mean, there was a pass made to kid we got, Josh Warren, and Josh happened to drop the pass. I mean, he's standing, got his guy sealed under the basket, drops the pass, and Tevin kind of gestures with his finger across his neck, not saying he's going to cut his neck off, but just saying,
like, don't choke.
He told him, and I saw him, I read his lips during the middle of the game, go screen, I'm not throwing it to you anymore. That's exactly what he told him. And the kid tried to explain it to him. He said, I don't want to hear it, Josh.
You go set a pick.
Oh, well, Tevin does this now. And he has this
I love that
leeway.
strategy.
And I don't want to talk all about Tevin, but I'm saying even in the games, if he's got a guy not sprinting, he's coming down the floor, coach, get him. And you know
Get
what
him
I'm
out.
doing? I'm
Get him
getting
out.
him. Yeah. That's
Well,
my
the good
floor
ones-
leader, man.
Now, I got a good friend of mine. I won't mention his name and embarrass him, but he played quarterback at the college level, and there were many times he called timeout and went over the sideline and said, "Get this guy out of here.
Oh, no question.
Get him out of my huddle.
No question.
I don't want him."
That's the kind of that's the kind of leader you want.
Well,
as a
that
coach.
is. You know, you want that stuff. 8:30, Ed Huckaby's here at Fishburne Military School. We got a news break, couple of minutes, and then we'll come back and spend more time with Ed. We got a lot to talk about, college basketball in general, his team, and, the expectations, and also, the whole recruiting thing. So we have a lot to do yet. A lot of stuff to get to. It's 8:30 from the Pepsi Cola Studios. We'll go to break. We'll be right back. More with Ed Huckaby just on the other side. Sports Radio 1400 WKAV.
I know a place.
Sports Radio 1400 WKAV from the Pepsi Cola Studios. I'm going to try to get Ed Huckaby his own show, and then I could take some vacation. In fact, you can just come over here. Really, if I teach you these computers and everything, you could kill it over here.
Mac, I couldn't live up to your ability.
Please. Yes, you could. Ed Huckaby is with us. He is the head coach of the Fishburne postgraduate basketball program over in Waynesboro. Fishburne Military School has done an outstanding job. We got a lot to cover in a short period of time. It's already, second half hour. You were just saying during the break, we were talking about expansion. And with Syracuse and Pittsburgh, and Virginia Tech will play Syracuse up in the Garden in that NIT preseason thing next week with Seth's win. He had to beat Monmouth and Florida International to get to New York. Not bad, huh?
Exactly.
So you weren't a proponent of ACC expansion then?
No, not only ACC, just period. I think.
Period.
I mean, growing up, most kids. I know I was a guy having played high school basketball in Ohio, identified with the Big Ten because of that region. And no matter what Big Ten school you knew regionally, you were going to be able to come home, play, so forth. Give you an example. Boise State. They're talking about them going to the Big East.
Yeah.
I think there was another one I just read this morning.
BYU probably.
BYU, right? Come on, man.
Come on, man.
Come on, man, as they say. I mean, these schools are out in two different time zones, and you're talking about playing. What's lost in this because of the money, and people try to claim it's not the money, which is a whole nother story.
Football money.
It's about
football money. And that's what I'm going to lead. I'm going to let you finish your thought because I want to ask you about how does it affect basketball?
Oh, it affects basketball big time. Football is the engine that drives all sports in this country. We know that. But for the NCAA presidents and these academic types to claim, well, it's all about the students and the student athletes and the student body, give me a break. Because if it was really about that, there would, the conference realignment thing would make more sense. Example being, it made sense when Tech left the Big East to go to the ACC. That made sense. For Syracuse and UConn and Pitt and these schools to leave the Big East to go to the ACC, even when Boston College went in, that doesn't make sense.
So you don't think Pitt and Syracuse make sense in the ACC?
No, not at all. I think they identify
good football schools. They're pretty reputable academic. I'm just playing devil's advocate. Pretty reputable academically.
What is the Big East known for, Mac? You and I go back. Basketball.
Yeah.
And that's what Syracuse. Syracuse is a basketball school.
Yeah.
Jim Brown or not, and Ernie, and all those guys in the day.
Donovan McNabb or not.
It's a basketball school.
Yeah.
Pitt has become a basketball school. It's never been like this powerhouse football. They had to run with Tony Dorsett for a couple of years. And, no, I'm not buying it. UConn, come on, football, UConn football.
Hey, they went to a BCS bowl. They won the Big East last year.
Do they play football in the Big East?
Yeah, a little bit.
So. So I'm not buying that. Even with the ACC's identity is still basketball. And for years, the reason the ACC is not perceived as strong as it is in football now is because Florida State is not. Florida State and Miami, if they're really good, then the ACC is perceived to be really good. If they're not really good, and right now they're trying to regroup, then the ACC is not considered really good. I mean, it's like Boise State, not getting off topic, but people think Boise State is this football power. Well, I'll put it this way. They're smart. They always play that one game that they've got to play. It's always the first game of the season.
Yeah.
So they're preparing for 3 months or from spring practice for that first game. Now, you put them in the SEC, they wouldn't win 5 games.
Well,
Because-
and the way they've recruited, not to interrupt you, I'm sorry, but the way they've recruited too, the JUCO guys, they always have, of their 22 starters, they always have like 19 seniors. Always.
no question, no question. But it's by attrition. It's like a few years ago when I coached at Hampton University, we were really good. We were maybe top 40. But the thing we understood, we played in a conference that allowed us, because we were physically better than the rest of the conference, but we didn't have to take the physical pounding night in and night out you would get in the ACC, Big East, Big Ten. So we could prepare different for those big games. We didn't have to go through the physical pounding every week. And so that's the big difference. So the conference realignment, going back to it, I'm not a proponent of it. I'm more of a traditionalist. Nebraska in the Big Ten, come on, you don't have Nebraska, Oklahoma anymore?
Yeah, no, I know.
I mean,
Friday, Thanksgiving, it was
Texas A&M?
grew up as an institution. That Friday after Thanksgiving was Nebraska, Oklahoma. I mean, that was 8:41. He is at Huckaby of the Fishburne Postgraduate Basketball Program. I want to transition in it because you brought up a good point, maybe, and it flipped on a light. At the next, and I almost hate to say the next level because VCU proved there is no level.
Right.
Do you hear from Shaka very much in VCU and the CAA schools? I would think that they would be pretty wrapped up in your program.
Yeah, I talk to them enough. We don't talk like every day because everyone gets busy in what they're doing. But I've known Shaka a long time, and they're again, he does a good job recruiting wise. We do hear from them. Mike Rhodes, an assistant there, they stop by and actually they'll watch practice, get ideas. We all steal ideas from each other, but they're going to do another good job. He knows he's regrouping because he understood that run he made last year. I mean, they finished in 4th place in the CAA.
Yeah,
people forget that.
Yeah,
they
I know.
finished in 4th. It wasn't like they won the conference and then was this juggernaut coming in. They got hot at the right time.
Right,
and he did a great job managing that tournament.
I know you know him. He's a piece of Virginia. He's been a friend for a long time. How will Jim Larinaga do at the University of Miami?
Very, very well. The thing I like about Jim Larinaga is I don't underestimate this. Miami has a lot of New Yorkers, and he's a New Yorker.
He can talk the talk.
He can recruit New York and get kids to Miami. And he'll be able to get enough of the guys in the state of Florida because the demographics of the country are changing. He'll do very well because first of all, one thing underestimated about Larinaga, he is a great recruiter in terms of how he can relate to kids, whether they're from an inner city black community, inner city white community, Hispanic community. I really enjoy him as a person.
Yeah.
And he's never changed through the years. He's always been the same. And people that know him will tell you he's always been the same. And he always looks out for his assistant coaches.
That's true. He's always been loyal to those guys.
No question.
No doubt. Ed Huckaby is with us, postgraduate coach at Fishburne Military School. Will Paul Hewitt do okay at George Mason?
I think he will. I think Paul made that run at Tech, but if you look at most of his success, it came at the mid-major level. And I think Larinaga left it in such a situation that it's hard for him to fail because it's now a name program. And so as long as Paul sticks to the blueprint, not saying he doesn't know what he's doing, but if he uses the same blueprint that Larinaga has used, then he'll be fine. Now, if they start trying to get out of their lane, as I would say, then now you're going to go back to struggling again because at the mid-major level, it goes through cycles. Southern Illinois for years dominated the Missouri Valley. Prior to VCU, I think Old Dominion had its run. Even prior to that, Richmond, when they were in there, VCU's back on another run now. But there's going to be someone different, every 4 or 5 years that'll have their time frame. Mason dominated the CAA, prior to, even with Larinaga. So it's not like Mason is not going to take a dip. You just hope that Paul can keep it at the top half of that conference where it's at. But at the mid-major level, you go through your
Sure.
peaks and valleys.
8:44, almost 8:45. Ed Huckaby is with us. We're going to break, come back, get a final break here, and we'll talk about the health of the game, the health of college basketball, and get into that as well. Great to catch up with Coach Huckaby from the Fishburne Postgrad Basketball Program. They're off to an 8-0 start. All right, we're going to break. We'll be right back. More with Coach Huck when we return from the Pepsi-Cola Studios. Sports Radio. 848 Sports Radio 1400 WKAV. We're live from the Pepsi-Cola Studios, and one of my good buddies, Ed Huckaby, is here, head coach of the Fishburne Postgrad Program over there. They're 8-0, off to an 8-0 start. They got a tournament going up. You guys are going to be busing up to New Haven, huh? How long a trip is that?
8 hours. I mean, we flew up last year.
That's not bad.
And this year I just said, we'll charter.
Do you get a bus with all the bells and whistles and the move?
Oh, most definitely. Most definitely.
And, of course, you sit front seat, right?
Yes, sir.
I mean, that's just...
Well, there's a rule.
That's mandatory.
That's a rule on the bus, though. What it is, the front part of the bus belongs to the coaches.
Correct.
The back half belongs to the players.
Absolutely.
So you don't want to hear anything as a coach. Don't go back there.
That's true. With the health of college basketball, and you see it, you recruit it, you try to get your kids placed, you walk into family zones. Probably nobody has a finger on the pulse of college basketball like you do. Healthy?
Very healthy.
Is college basketball healthy?
I think it's always been healthy. I mean, people complain that it's not healthy. They'll look at last year or last couple of years. Well, it's not healthy. You got teams like Butler and VCU in the Final Four. Well, that same complaint wasn't made when Indiana State was in the national championship game with Larry Bird.
No, it was a pretty special night.
Yeah, so, the game is always healthy because you always have a new generation of players and kids coming along, and so it is very healthy. I think if it wants to continue to improve the game, I think the NCAA has to really overhaul their rules and legislation to fit what's going on in today's society. Otherwise, eventually what you're going to have is, and you probably remember this, Mac, when the NCAA tried to govern all the TV contracts.
Yeah.
And then remember when the football schools created the CFA and
Right.
said we're going to break off on our
College
own.
Football Association,
And
sure.
then the NCAA said, oh, no, we don't want to lose this money. Go ahead and, you can negotiate your own. I think they overhaul this ridiculously thick, up-to-date rule book.
Mm-hmm.
The game will stay healthy. And I think they're making some changes in the right direction. But we got great kids, great fans, and the game will always be healthy.
Yeah, I mean, I think, if you don't screw it up. Now, you don't have any real recruiting. Do you have recruiting guidelines, or can you kind of do what you got to do at the prep school level?
Yeah, we can do what we need to do. I try to follow the NCAA guidelines when everything we do, from practice times to 20 hours a week, study tables, even when we go out recruiting. I try to do the recruiting in a manner, because we are recruiting like a Division I program. So I try to follow those guidelines, but as far as having a dead period or time we can't go out, we don't have to.
Yeah, you could
follow
go down.
that,
You could go down, walk into an AAU game or a high school game when the other coaches can't be there.
Or do a home visit,
Right.
every day if I wanted to do it,
Yeah.
So funny because I admit I babysitted Tevin Jones, man. Hey, after I saw him play, it was funny.
You wanted him, huh?
5 minutes into it, I said, okay, I'll be back down here in Kannapolis again next week. So I think I made about 5 trips down there.
Yeah, and of course you got to enjoy recruiting, man. It's all about life love. But again, the great thing about Fishburne, and what I've seen from the outside looking in, I've known you for a couple of years now. To me, the great thing is you get to go down there and say, look, because you're almost like double recruiting. Come play with me, spend a year, and then I'm going to help you, then I'm going to move you forward. You're like a PR guy.
Well, I appreciate that. It is, but I got to say this, and I'm not saying it as a corporate line. Fishburne is really a wonderful place.
Yeah, the kids,
but it's the people. I mean, they really make an investment into bettering everyone there.
Yeah.
And I'm probably tougher on the guys in terms of something that I don't need to be as tough on than the administration or the staff. But from Colonel Zinzer to Susan Johnson, Ted Maroney, our board of trustees and everyone, they are so supportive. Rob Gray, they are just so supportive of what the school mission is. And because they're all, most of them are former cadets themselves. Now they're going back, board of trustees or administration, so forth with the school. It really helps with recruiting because it really creates a whole person. And I think that ties into the success we've had with the number of players we've had moved on.
No doubt.
Because there's
No
not a
doubt.
circus going on around the kid himself.
Right.
There's a kid locally, I'll leave unnamed, that's a pretty big name player that's highly recruited. But if I had to give him any advice and to his family, is that don't make your recruiting a circus. I had a son that played at Syracuse, as an All-American in '95, in high school. We didn't make his recruiting a circus. And I think, outside looking in, this kid's recruiting has become, you can't make a decision. And some schools have now withdrawn scholarship offers for him. So
Yeah, they're doing the hats and the press conferences or whatever. Well, in the final 30 seconds that we have, and not to blow smoke, but one thing I think that, as I said, in the 2 years that I've known you and seen you, whatever, I think, and I probably Fishburne would say the same thing, I think you're a perfect fit because you get it over there. You understand their mission. I was just listening to you talk about how all the people over there, but you get it over there, which has to help.
I think in any endeavor, no man can say he does it by himself.
Sure.
And to wrap this up, the only thing you do by yourself is die. That's it. You're not born by
Good
yourself.
point. That's true.
Your success is not, people say I'm a self-made man. That's not true. Someone along the line
That's
helped
right.
you.
That's right. Can I? That's got to go on my quote wall then. Yeah, that's right. The only that's an Ed Huckaby quote, isn't it? The only thing you do by yourself is die.
Absolutely.
Oh, I'm good. I tell you what, that goes right to the quote wall. I have a quote book. It's going right to that, and I'm putting Ed Huckaby's name right underneath
I
it.
appreciate it.
All right, we'll come back and wrap up. Ed Huckaby, post-grad basketball coach over at Fishburne Military School. God, I knew the hour would sail. I just knew it would. But you got to come back a couple of weeks.
I
Okay.
appreciate it.
Okay, we'll get caught up. 8:55. We'll be right back.